That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, the third film directed by Anthony Fabian, which is being released courtesy of Focus Features July 15th, 2022.
Do I know Anthony's other films?
I don't think so, but I am a fan of his debut, the 2008 film Skin, which is a fantastic performance from Sophie Okonedo, who plays a young black woman born to two white parents in apartheid era South Africa, and the parents are played by Alice Kriege and Sam Neill.
So this movie is based on a book which you read, and then there was a movie made about the book in
There was a television film in 1992 starring Angela Lansbury, Diana Rigg, Omar Sharif.
That movie was from 1992?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was from the 50s.
You think Angela looked that old in the 50s? It was made for television, which might be why.
We can talk about how it compares to the book, but this movie, the basic story is, it's about a woman named Ada Harris. London, 1957. She is a widow in denial. She was married to this man who went off to war like in the 40s, never returned, and she believes that he's still out there somewhere. However, we see her carrying around this package, like a letter addressed to her. And one day she just decides to open it, and it's from the military saying that your husband died in battle like 14 years ago. And here's like the only thing, like his only personal effects, which are a ring. But we see Mrs. Harris working as a housekeeper. She has like 3 employers. So she's bebopping around cleaning. She has a best friend named Vi, played by
Ellen Thomas.
One day at one of Mrs. Harris's jobs, the lady of the house has purchased this like haute couture Christian Dior dress, and Mrs. Harris sees it and is like taken away. Mm-hmm. Like she must have this dress. So she decides to save up enough money to fly to Paris to buy this dress, which at that time cost £500. We'll get into how she gets the money, but she gets her ass to Paris, gets to the Christian Dior boutique, which is run by a character played by Isabelle Huppert. Mm-hmm. And they look at her like, we don't allow rats in here. Like, this is about exclusivity, luxury. You don't belong anywhere near this store. Mm-hmm. So Mrs. Harris causes a scene, and one of the like luxury customers in line to see one of those private, because back in the day, they would have like private like model showings of the clothes. This man says, oh no, Mrs. Harris can be my guest. And there begins this week-long like whirlwind trip to Paris where she is sort of changing lives and getting this dress made for herself. We can get into all that. But she finally leaves once her dress is done. After doing a lot of things. She gets home and one of her like employers comes to her home. Mm-hmm. And says, and it's like this young wannabe starlet. And she's like, I need your help. I don't know what to do. I'm going to this fancy party. I don't have anything to wear. And Mrs. Harris says, oh, I got you. And she lets this girl borrow her Christian Dior dress, which she has never worn. Mm-hmm. This girl goes to the party, and that damn dress catches on fire. And it's like in all the tabloids because it's like a fancy party. And then photographers caught the burned up dress. So the people back in Paris at the Christian Dior shop see this in the news. They ship Mrs. Harris a new dress, which is actually the dress she actually wanted.
Temptation.
We can get into all that because that didn't make sense to me either. And Mrs. Harris wears this dress to a party and dances with this guy who we've met previously. The end. Mm-hmm. I, of course, was going to watch this movie because Isabelle's in it.
Oh, yeah. It's a new Isabelle Huppert film.
So, there, it didn't matter what it was. But I did watch the trailer, and I'm like, oh, great. This is going to be a really sweet, heartwarming story. And I have to say, I was left so disappointed with this movie.
I am too. It really is, and we will get into it, but it really is her portion in Paris that feels really fumbled. And
Mrs. Harris in Paris is the worst part of this movie.
Yeah, the French are kind of painted as awful stereotypes in this. But I was alarmed. Okay, so I'm a fan of the book, which did bring me to tears in several sequences because it's very sweet and it's very simple. And it was written in the 50s by Paul Gallico, who's better known for having written the Poseidon Adventure.
Oh.
Yeah, but Mrs. Harris is a character that he resurrected in other books. There are other books about, excuse me, Mrs. Harris. And I waited to watch the television film until after we'd seen this because I didn't want Diana Rigg's performance to influence what I thought of Isabelle in this. But I was alarmed when I saw that there were 4 screenwriters in the opening credits because there's no reason.
This is at its core, I didn't read the book, but at its core, it seems like such a simple, basic story about this sweet lady and the idea that no one is too small to dream big. Like, it's not that complicated. And then they turn this movie into like this convoluted...
Yes. Again, although they do utilize some the burn dress thing was left out of the television film, which I think is really kind of a powerful moment about Mrs. Harris's characterization that is necessary, I think, to the meaning of the narrative.
Could I just go through my notes?
Yes.
I think something that really rang true to me. So the first like 25 minutes of the film worked really well for me. And it reminded me of something my mom used to always tell me, which is that it's so important to have something to work for. So an example would be like, if there's like a car you want, get the car. And then that'll motivate you to like go to work every day and pay that car, whatever it is. You collect movies or you want a pair of fancy shoes. And as an adult, I still believe that. I think it's important for people to have something material and feel like this is my thing and I appreciate it and I worked hard for it. And I think that's what I was hoping this movie was going to be about, is this woman like having something to work for, and in the process of that, her dreams come true. And we don't get any of that.
No, that kind of does happen at the bitter
But she's
end.
already a hard worker, so
Yeah.
it's like, well, there's so much. I wrote down we all need a friend like Vi.
Yeah.
So Vi is this black lady who is also a housekeeper, and clearly they've known each other forever, and they have sort of the same route, so they take the same bus. And I think the combination of Mrs. Harris, Vi, and the man,
Jason Isaacs.
when we're in London in the beginning and then in the end, I feel like anytime those 3 were on screen, that's when the movie really worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, all that time in Paris, no. Okay, something that really bothered me. When Mrs. Harris sees this dress in her boss's armoire, she explains to her it's a haute couture Christian Dior gown that costs 500 pounds. And of course, Mrs. Harris is like, good Lord, I can't. Okay, so she clearly doesn't know anything about haute couture, doesn't even know what Christian Dior is. So she goes to Paris thinking that she can buy this dress. And then she gets there and she sees all her options, and that's not one of the dresses. And then there's this evil lady, like this evil rich lady who doesn't like that Mrs. Harris is there. And so she's writing down all the dresses Mrs. Harris likes as options. This mean old lady's writing them down. And her plan is when Mrs. Harris goes to pick her number 1 choice, she's going to go buy that dress. And she does. So the dress Mrs. Harris ends up with is not her first choice. It's not even her second choice. It's her third choice.
Sure, I don't know that she thought that she would get an exact replica of the Dior dress. In Anna Chancellor is one of the bosses that has it. I don't know that she thinks that.
But in this movie, I don't know about the book, but in this movie, they don't do a good job of explaining what about this dress is, because the way it's played out is like this exact dress sent her. So then for her to just fly her ass to Paris and then it's not she never tells the shop like Isabelle's character, I forget the name of the dress she actually wanted, but she's like she never says I want this dress, where can I buy it? She just walks in like, oh okay, well,
I want a frock.
I want a frock. No, you don't want a frock, you want the frock. And then when she sees all her options and then she picks her number 1 choice and can't have it, she's like, well, I did like this one, I guess I'll buy that one.
She wants temptation, but that whole mechanism is exclusive to this version of the story.
So I don't like that.
But of course it sets it up because she goes home with the green dress, Venus, and it's the one that gets burned. And this version of the narrative allows her to come out on top by getting temptation, because the woman that owned it was the wife of the man that runs all the garbage companies in Paris, and those workers are on strike, and so she's not able to pay the bill. Blah blah blah. She gets to have this dress. Yeah, there's this whole kind of rebellion, revolution against capitalism thing going on here, because she gets to Paris and it's like the opening of Joker. Like there's trash all over the streets.
Because there's like a union strike.
There's a union strike.
Which is not in the book.
No, not at all. And then
what purpose do you think that served? For her, because getting back to what I just said, if we don't know that she doesn't realize she's getting the exact dress she wanted, she doesn't understand haute couture, she's not getting her second choice, and then she doesn't seem to be drawn to the idea of going to Paris because her trip was supposed to take a day. She was supposed to go in the morning and then come back at night.
She didn't realize
but the flight got delayed, and then she didn't realize that it takes fittings, like it takes a week or two.
Yeah, they don't give you that dress. Yeah.
So then, what is the point of having her go to Paris and then it's just covered in trash? That lady didn't care about Paris to begin with.
No, but I think it's trying to instill that there's this underlying motif of like, well, all the stuff about Jean-Paul Sartre and this working class rises above sort of mentality, because
it's very lukewarm to me.
Because they also dismiss a bunch of the models, and Mrs. Harris single-handedly creates a strike.
We need to talk about that scene.
Okay.
In more detail. But can I go through my notes still? So another thing I didn't like is we don't understand her money situation. When she finds out her husband is dead, then some scenes later, the military come to her and say, oh, your husband died so long ago, you should have been collecting like widow's support. Mm-hmm. So we're here to give it to you. They don't say how much it is. But she's keeping a ledger of like how much she needs down to the pence, I guess, mm-hmm. for her trip to Paris. So she, like, I don't understand. Okay, so a £500 dress in 1957 is the equivalent of what, like 10,000 now? It's like, okay, that is a lot of money, but you have 14 years worth of spousal support that you just got. Then she finds like a fancy ring in the street and returns it to the police, and the police come to her and say, oh, on the same day that she gets her spousal support, because so it's like her lucky day, she finds out about her spousal support, then she gets a reward for finding the ring. Then there's a scene where she goes to the dog track where Isaac works, and she places a ridiculous bet on a dog named Haute Couture. And that her friend is like, girl, that dog is not winning at all. Like, do not put your 100 pounds on this dog. But then his boss is behind him, like, you better take that lady's money. And then we find out he only put 90 on her bet. Mm-hmm. The other 10 he put on like a dog he thought would win. So she actually won all her money back plus some. So it is her lucky day. I don't understand, like, how much money is she working with that... That really bothered me. That, like, is she cutting it very close by taking this trip?
She is. Not? She is. And
in the book, is she?
In the book and the original television film, because part of the third act surprise is she doesn't realize she has to declare this dress to customs, and there's a hefty fee for that she doesn't have.
That's not in the movie.
This one.
But... So it's good to know in the book that she's cutting it close, because in the movie, when she says, okay, I'm buying this dress that you're going to let me buy because you won't let me buy the dress I really want, they say, oh, well, girl, you got to stay like 2 weeks for the fittings and such. And she's like, no, I can't. Okay, we'll make it a week. We'll pull some strings. Who can you stay with? How can you, get time off from work? And Mrs. Harris doesn't make it seem like money's the issue. She just says like, oh, if I don't show up to work,
they're going to hire somebody else.
They're going to have someone else, which is like, for real? One of your employers owes you money. The other one is that old dippy starlet wannabe girl who didn't seem like she would just fire her. And then the other one is this man who we see always has like these young girls.
Which is so funny because that's Christian McKay playing that person.
Why is that funny?
I always associate him with... I Melt With You, who is the gay one. But he also played Orson Welles.
Anyway, he's actually quite kind to her. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, these people don't seem like they would just drop you like a hot potato. And then you're not making it seem like, oh, if I miss a week of work, I'll be homeless. So again, not explaining what haute couture means to her and the fact that she can't get the dress she actually wants, and not understanding what her money situation is like, really took away from her entire time in Paris for me. Because then for her to end up with the dress she didn't even want.
Yes, and I think it doesn't help that the French characters are all painted as these broad stereotypes. Like I do like Roxane Duran. She plays Marguerite, who works
The redhead?
Yeah, the other redhead besides Isabelle, who's very kind to her. And right away when she sees Lesley Manville stand up to Isabelle Huppert, she goes back and tells the other girls, including the face of Dior, played by the bottle, Natasha is the character's name, played by Alba Baptista, and they're like, there's a poor cleaning lady that's come all the way to see us, come take a look. It's like they infantilize them. And also the Isabelle Huppert character, previously played by Diana Rigg, which doesn't make sense as a British woman playing French. Anyway, she initially in the original material, she becomes a very quick friend to Mrs. Harris, and she's this kind of old dragon, and they collapse her character with the other villain, which was a director that didn't want Mrs. Harris to have the dress, and it really limits, I think, what Isabelle Huppert does. And she's also, when she's speaking English to this woman, it's such a way that it's like she's trying to be patronizing in her way of speaking English, but there are a couple scenes where she's not intelligible.
There were a couple of scenes where I didn't understand what Isabelle was saying. I don't understand why you would have Isabelle Huppert in a movie working as the directress of the Christian Dior boutique in Paris, and she's not speaking French because, like you mentioned, it seems like she's trying to have this condescending tone towards Mrs. Harris. But to me, what would be more wicked is to speak to this lady in French. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then belittle her, and then finally show that, oh, I can also speak English. So why have her speak English and then have her speak it in a way that it sounded like she was chewing on her own tongue.
Yes, and then by the time we get
maybe she's allergic to walnuts, and maybe she had walnuts before she shot the scene. I don't know.
No, I think she was trying something, and I think Anthony Fabian was probably afraid to direct her. Probably.
I'm staring at a book of Isabelle Huppert right now.
Yeah,
is that an Isabelle shelf?
Yeah, that's her. The 3 shelves. She's in a lot of films.
So we love her in this house.
Yes, well, she's plastered on my back,
but she was. I mean, she was not my favorite part of this movie.
No, but I don't think it's her fault because she's written as this. She's a caricature. She's a French caricature, and by the time her redemption scene comes, it's far too little.
Oh, it's too late.
Because what Mrs. Harris is doing initially is like touching all these people's lives in a way that's effervescent and effortless, and helping them. And in this, she's just as you said, you feel like she plays the Anglophile version of the magical Negro.
Yeah.
And it does play like that. Or it's not just that trope, but anytime you have some disenfranchised member that unexpectedly transforms the lives of these bitter, cynical, bored people, like the drag queens in Tu Wong Fu, which is a film I really like, but those people, those characters are also neutered.
Yeah.
Like they have no sexuality, really.
Right.
And they're not doing anything for themselves. And that is...
that's the worst part, is like, I'm rooting for Mrs. Harris. I want to see her come out on top, and I feel like in the end, it's just like she's in the same spot she was when she started.
She's become a little... She stands up to Anna Chancellor and says, I'm leaving, you don't... And another thing they don't bookend the film with is Rose Williams plays Pamela, the starlet that burns her dress. And my first note about her was like, she's a Diana Dors wannabe.
I thought she reminded me of that lady from Frank and Penelope.
Okay.
What's her name? Kaylee. Mm-hmm. Who's Ben Affleck's brother?
Casey Affleck's girlfriend.
Casey Affleck's girlfriend
Yes.
in Frank and Penelope.
She reminded me of Diana Dors, who had very large breasts, and we saw her in that Joan Crawford film recently, Berserk, as the other female lead. But she reminded me of that kind of British actress. Where was I going with that? I don't remember. Anyway.
Something else that didn't work for me that you said in the book is different. The man who takes Mrs. Harris into the fashion show as
Lambert
his
Wilson.
guest.
Yeah, the Marquis.
In the book, he makes it clear right away.
He's like, I like you. You remind me of Hops from my school days.
Some like matronly lady from when I was a kid. So he establishes like, you just seem like a sweet old lady to me, so I want to do something kind for you. In this movie, they try to make us think that there might be a romantic connection, which you know immediately is not true, because at the fashion show, he tells her like, oh, I'm also a widower, and
I like the young girls.
And I like seeing pretty women. And of course, at the show, it's all these young, beautiful young women. And then he takes her on a date, which we're like, for real? He's taking her on a date? And he takes her to the equivalent of like a strip club.
Burlesque, yeah.
So then the fourth time they meet, so there's quite a bit of time spent with these two interacting, and I think they're trying to convince us it's romantic.
Well, Natasha's like, you made a conquest.
And then on the final meeting, he explains to her, oh, you remind me of this old matronly ass lady from when I was a kid. And of course her feelings are hurt. I feel like that was such a poorly written thing. Like, who in the audience thinks that this man is into her?
Yes.
Like,
and that was Omar Sharif in the other film, and it's very clearly established in the book in that he is he's just a friend. They share a love of flowers, blah blah blah, and he helps her out a lot. And how he sends her the flowers in the end after that scene again doesn't make sense. And I think because there were too many writers trying to pad out certain things that don't need to be padded out, and it really bears the scars of that. I really didn't like Natasha and Monsieur.
That's my next note.
Fauvel, who played the accountant.
Good thing he's attractive because
that's Lucas Bravo from Emily in Paris.
I mean, I thought, I don't know if he's a fine actor, but like the words come out of his mouth and the characterization was just like, and there's so much energy spent on him and Natasha, like becoming a couple. Like, it's called Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. I want to know about her. I want to see her find companionship. I want to see her find her dreams. The film ends with seeing those two following their dreams.
Yeah, all of the because Natasha is tired of being this beauty that everybody likes.
The face of Dior.
The face of Dior, and there's all these.
She is beautiful.
Yes, but there's all this like pseudo existentialism that's peppered throughout with these sound bites about Sartre that just feel so that they just fall like bricks out of their mouths because you don't believe anything they're saying.
The only thing that worked for me while she's in Paris is when she first gets to the city, because the airport's outside of the city. She goes into like a train or bus depot, and there are like three homeless gentlemen, like winos, because you'd say that back then, I guess. Mm-hmm. I say it now. But they're there and she asks for their help. And of course, you're like, oh no. I was like cringing, like, please don't let them steal her purse. And they turn out to be really nice guys. And the one like escorts her to Dior. He's such a kind gentleman. And then at the end of her trip, she and the French guy, the handsome guy, are looking for Natasha. Mm-hmm. So she's like, oh, I have an idea. And she goes to the three homeless guys. And she's like, we need your help finding some lady. And then the guy is like, yeah, she's like
the most beautiful, blah,
she's
blah,
the most
blah.
beautiful person you ever seen. And then the guy goes like, oh, is that her? And she's just walking by like in a trench coat. But I thought that feeling I got from realizing that those three homeless guys were going to help her, like that heartwarming, like the camaraderie of like the working class and the lower class people helping each other out. That's what I wanted this movie to be, because even the workers at the Dior boutique, it seems like they take a liking to her, but the film doesn't explore the fact. I mean, if they're gonna do the whole thing with the fucking, the trash workers on strike, and then we see Mrs. Harris convincing the atelier workers to go on strike. I guess I wanted time. Instead of focusing on Natasha and Old Boy, we should have been focusing on how all these people in this shop, like, they are more like her than the products they're producing, mm-hmm. and having that camaraderie. But we don't really get that. They all just kind of look at her and smile like, oh, isn't this novel?
It's a bit like Catherine Deneuve running the umbrella factory in Potiche.
Because even when we see Isabelle's character's house, it's like she lives in like a dump. And it's like...
taking care of a wounded husband who's wounded from the war. Yeah.
And it's like Mrs. Harris probably has a nicer life than most of these people, like, as far as her home and the amount of money she makes.
But again, I think that's what they were trying to stress with having her lead the strike, and she's a representative of the people, but
it's not enough.
But no one's looking out for her, and she starts to realize that she needs to start, looking.
It wasn't enough.
But what I was going to say about that Rose Williams Pamela character is, in the book they explain that she's the kindest person you'll ever, she'll go the extra mile for you, but if you hurt her, she'll slip the key in your slot and won't ever come back to clean for you again. And they show her doing that in this, but it means nothing to the audience.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's why I feel like, that's why I'm saying that there's no trajectory for Mrs. Harris, because when we meet her, she is a strong, independent lady. Mm-hmm. So the fact that she can't tell this one lady, like, run me my money, like, my account is past due, pay me what you owe me, is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And then in the end, when she comes back to Paris, that's when she tells her, like, you can't just treat people this way. But it's like, you just now got the courage to say this? You were all up and through Paris fighting for everyone's rights. And then before you even left to go to Paris, you were getting things done.
But you get the sense that she didn't want to have to go there. You know, she doesn't want to have to be pushed that way.
But you said in the book she has no problem doing that.
No, but...
But
she's not confrontational.
No, but I just don't... I just really want this to be about a woman who's a hard worker who's independent, and just she needs to treat herself. She's always worried about everyone else. When is she going to treat herself? That's what I think the story should have been about. Like, she needs to start dreaming and stop encouraging others to live the life they want to live. And in the end, we don't get that.
Right. And you know what it does, it robs the inherent sweetness of those French characters, like Lambert Wilson, who the other woman that plays her enemy that tries to steal temptation. That woman played Sister Jacopa in Benedetta, which Lambert Wilson was also just in, and I know you liked him in that. But it robs him of that character, of that inherent sweetness, that connection that they have.
We have to end this video soon. What else would you like to say?
But again, it does get that sense of the love of fashion and period, because you have Lesley Manville putting on Juliette Greco on a record player. You have the scene where you get to the parade of the Dior dresses. I think is quite lovely to look at.
It's beautifully shot.
It reminded me of, it was shot by Felix Wiedemann, but it reminded me of the only color sequence in George Cukor's The Women from 1939, that fashion show. It very much has that kind of elegance about it. It's just something else gets lost in this adaptation, which is too bad, because Lesley Manville is really good and incredibly watchable. I think that she does for this role what Angela Lansbury couldn't in 1992, because she does have like this joie de vivre about her.
I agree. What would you give it?
Notably also, Lesley Manville played Princess Margaret in The Crown.
Okay.
And of course, Princess Margaret is haunting that character comes up in the audience somewhere. Anyway, I would give it 2.5.
I would give it 2.5 as well. I probably would give it lower, but I think Lesley Manville, when the film is in London, it's bookended with them in London, I think that's where it really shines. So I do think it's worth a watch. It just didn't give me what I wanted. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.